have a better perfected idea of personal information rights. And companies are obligated in Europe to provide a lot more protection about personal information. Mm-hmm. It's still a little bit the Wild West in the United States. It's not crazy, but it's just not quite as people-oriented as I think it should be.
Yes, sir.
I think this is a follow-up to what Melissa was talking about as far as yes being an empowering thought or an empowering word. And the note that I made to myself when you were describing your environment of engineers was nurserymen. Because here in Carpinteria and even in Goleta, we have these nurseries with these ideal environments, and then the nurseryman steps back and says, grow. And they just say yes and give all of these plants their nutrients, and off they grow. So I identify strongly with what you're saying, because I've been doing this with children for nearly 40 years as a Montessori teacher, saying yes. And I come in anecdotally and say that Sergi and Larry are both Montessori students, and Sergi in San Francisco at our international conference 3 years ago, when we celebrated 100 years of Montessori education, spoke to the group and referenced the experience that he remembers as a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old being told yes by his teacher. So I coming from that, here we are in I think a traditional setting of this college in this very innovative and new sort of program, which seems to be saying yes. I think I have a question here. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to the idea you made. If I interpreted it correctly, you made a reference to government, and here we are going through all of this change, and the sense I get is that the form of education, formal education, is changing because of Google, and because the information is being put together in such a way that we can self-manage our own education. What do you see as the future of formal or self-regulated education?
Wow. There you go. I'm almost totally self-taught. I had the good fortune of a grandfather who lived with us. And when I was a kid, I remember he basically taught me to read. He only had a 5th grade education. He was but a superb master carpenter, and he taught me to read, and he taught me to think, and he taught me to question, and I did my first little projects and science and stuff with him when I was in like 1st grade. I can remember that very clearly, and he's the guy who took me out and introduced me to the stars. So I had the very good fortune of, before I ever got to school, meaning 1st grade, I already had the capacity to teach myself. And so I'm sort of maybe a good example of what you're talking about, or a bad example, but I've never really valued, I don't disvalue, I've never really used formal learning settings. For me, it's about finding books, reading new things, understanding things, talking to people. And of course, ever since the internet came along, access to stuff.
So if I could follow up then, when you were talking about this interview process, and you were talking about the sociability of the engineers and the idea that their self-management had to do with being able to work with other engineers, were degrees important? Were initials in colleges and universities, were those vital to get to you to?
They were not important to me. They were important to other people in the company, and because it's a social enterprise, you have to satisfy more than one person. They never, degrees in the pedigree of the college was, in my opinion, irrelevant. Okay, and other people would figure out if these people were good computer scientists or not. My judgment was to figure out, could they interact? But no, it doesn't happen to be something I highly value. it's evidence that you've done something, and that you've subjected yourself to some stuff maybe. But you know, I'm probably on my sixth or seventh learning experience in my 40 or so years at this. And so, I mean, what the heck I was taught at some period of time is almost irrelevant now. I've learned, it's all been learned in a different way and used in a different way multiple times. And so.
Well, thank you very much to the Scheinfeld Center and to Santa Barbara City College for creating this extremely educational forum today, and for us all, I think, to learn from you and your experience. So please join me in thanking Mr. Wayne Rosing.